What is AI? AI is computer doing human-like things. Her Highness showing up on Wimbledon and Anushka Sharma showing up when Virat Kohli is retiring. That clip becomes more important and internet-worthy than anything. What Spectator does is that whenever a live match happens, that match has to be cut and chopped right when the match ends. There's a 1 minute highlight. So we make computer hear things, we make computer see things, and then we make computer think that yes, this moment is important. So understanding that story, when is this catch drop important and when it is not important, and publish that and not publish that. So if you go on and do that manually, it'll take 6-7 hours, and the match loses interest because everyone has seen the match, they've gone to sleep, the day is over. So all that short form content now is created with AI now in this new world that exists for last 1.5 years.
Hello and welcome to ETAI Podcast. I'm your host Radhika, and together we will explore how AI is reshaping business and work. Today we have with us Ms. Richa Singh, the co-founder of Spectator.ai, a platform that is transforming the way live sports content is delivered and consumed. Hi Richa, a very warm welcome to ETAI Podcast. This conversation is going to be very special for me because it has two of my favorite skills, sports and technology. A very warm welcome to you once again. Before we begin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? And while AI is touching all aspects of our lives, what inspired you to start something in the space of sports?
Sure, Radhika. Thank you for having me. This is very special for me too. ET has been a coveted place to be at, so it's a very special podcast. Thank you so much for your time. About myself, I went to IIT Kharagpur, then later I was a banker consultant at Ahmedabad, and later I started my own startups. Closer to 2016, I got into startups. This startup I started in 2021. This brings together, very similar to you, brings together two things that I like a lot, sports and data. I'm a national level sports person. I'm a UP champion. I'm currently a golfer and a badminton player, so very active sports-wise. Even my family is. So that is one piece. It's a lot of fun. The family is into it. The other piece is, of course, the IT and the technical, and my first job was into data. So bringing together data and sports is how Spectator.ai happened. And the idea behind all of it was that so much content gets created in sports, and it doesn't necessarily always reaches the fan who wants to see it in the language or at the place or at the device. So all that needed to be solved. And it was increasingly clear that manually doing that was not possible. And suddenly come AI and it became possible. So we went that way.
Could you tell us what Spectator.ai does and how AI is the core of your product?
Sure. What Spectator does is that whenever a live match happens, and we can take the India-Pakistan match that just happened. So whenever a live match happens, that match has to be cut and chopped into highlights. You see it on Sony Live, etc. Right when the match ends, there's a 1 minute highlight. There's say another match, Virat Kohli's catches. There are catches only, their best moment. All these highlights and short form content from that entire match has to be created in real time because the world is consuming so much of short form content in vertical first format. So if you go on and do that manually, it'll take 6-7 hours, and the match loses interest because everyone has seen the match, they've gone to sleep, the day is over. So all that short form content now is created with AI. How does that happen? We ingest the live feed. It could be anything. It could be MP4, MOV, RT, MP, any format. We ingest the live feed, then starts the AI processing. This is where AI is at the core. Now, so many different technologies of AI come together. For example, what is AI? AI is computer doing human-like things. So we make computer hear things, we make computer see things, and then we make computer think that yes, this moment is important. So breaking down, when I say we make computer hear things, that is where we hear the entire commentary, that whole commentary that Sidhu is saying and somebody is saying. Because in that whole commentary, there's so much information. At every point, they're saying this is a goal. A goal hasn't happened for last 10 years by in this field. So now computer has heard that. Computer is like somewhere here, there's a goal. So that's marker one. And then computer starts seeing it, computer vision. Then it'll say, okay, there's a goal post. Somebody is running towards it. Ball actually entered the goal post. This is a goal. So computer is now conclusively sure with its ears, hearing the commentary, making sense of it with AI, and seeing with computer vision. And then the computer will chop out that gold clip or that six clip or that wicked clip. And that's how a clip goes on the entire internet of Instagram, apps, ICC website, TikTok in real time. Computer has cropped that 10 seconds out and made a clip. And once it has cropped that 10-second out, then it does more of processing. For example, our matches are recorded in English, but the viewers are across the world. You would have seen Koreans record DDLJ songs. So everyone loves things across cultures. So the clip is out now in English. Now computer will automatically convert it into 20 plus languages in a way where it is state of the art. It doesn't feel like a computer has recorded it. Now the AI technology around it is so good with the level labs, etc., that it is recorded in 20 languages, that just that gold clip real time within a minute all of it is happening. And then, as you know, all cameras are horizontal, but the world is watching everything in mobile. Then comes another AI. That computer is tracking the ball and keeping the frame moving so that it has readied a mobile first goal in 20 plus languages within a minute for ICC or for EPL, and then that gets shipped back to them within a minute. And now, once they've received it, they have to now distribute it on all these TikTok apps, website, etc. in real time before it comes from a UGC source. Because if it comes from a UGC source, then the main channel of ICC or EPL will not get the value. So that distribution itself also has to be done with AI. The moment you put a person, it will take at least 3-4 minutes, error correction. So that whole caption writing, hashtag writing for 10 channels together. Again, the clip goes back, all caption writing, hashtag, etc., all channels already integrated. Even push now is not pressed. Goals is auto pushed now. So once this happens, clip goes back, tuck, 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 all hashtag description, 20 channels together. You can hit a push now, it goes out. So this whole cycle that a goal happened in real world, we got the feed from ICC, we created, or from EPL, we created the goal highlight in vertical format, sent it back, it is published across the internet. This whole cycle is run within 1.5 minutes. That is what AI is enabling. Imagine if people did it, it will be at least 1.5 hours.
Very interesting and very efficient. But tell me something, is there any human involvement in the entire process other than pressing the push now, or the judging is involved? Because sometimes there are controversies, sometimes you got a out decision and then there was a third umpire and the decision was reversed. So where is the human involvement in
the push now computer can do, but but a lot of other things, the computer doesn't understand the story. Like a catch dropped in the 49th over or in the 19th over could be a very, very important thing. A catch dropped of Virat Kohli could be the very important thing. A catch dropped of a bowler in the 4th over, I don't know, maybe not that important. Computer cannot send out every clip created because you want to send out just the top 8 moment, 10 moments, because that's what you want to give to the fans. So understanding that story, when is this catch drop important and when it is not important, and publish that and not publish that, that is where AI still struggles a bit. Humans can intercept. Right now they don't. They just make a rule-based kind of thing that all goals have to go, all the catches have to go. But once AI get to that point where it is able to solve these, those storytelling, at least first and match first storytelling will become more enhanced. Right now, where computer intervention happens is that most of the AI systems are not 100%. There's a human SLA level, are not 100%. They don't necessarily hear correctly. They don't necessarily see correctly. They don't necessarily verticalize the format correctly. They don't necessarily translate into 20 plus languages correctly. So for the most important things, which in football is goals, in this one could be sixes. There you want to, and especially if it's a very important athlete, you want to double check before sending out. So a lot of SLA kind of things happen.
So if I understand correctly, they would, the way I'm visualized, there's a dashboard there. You get the feed. It is broken into small sections and highlights in real time. And then it is the judgment of a human involved to see if he or she wants to allow it to go online.
Yeah.
I am assuming all the goals don't go online because otherwise your channel will be inundated with so many things.
Yeah. All goals go because they're usually 2-3 goals. Not all saves, chance, assist. Yeah. But goals are like 2, 3 goals, and those are the IP, important, most valuable IP. Yeah.
So that's very helpful. But tell me something now. I think you mentioned about data also, analytics also. So what are you using? What base models are you using to do all this? And are you building on top of the existing models, or are you building custom models? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the models in AI, it feels like you have to do a lot of training. The other day, 2 days back, I was in US, and there was like this just a recent graduate. He was like, "How did you train your model?" And it felt like he feels there's a mammoth of work to be done into training before you can build anything in AI. And I was just calming him down. It's not like that. So what happens these days is there are a lot of state of the art of the shelf models on pretty much everything we spoke about. It could be on listening, it could be on the vision, it could be on the face recognition that you start with. You could use something from a Hugging Face, you could pick up any of the AWS models. AWS would have very good OCRs, very good facial recognition. Why do you need OCR? You see on the screen, okay, this is the score, this is the goal, this is. So a lot of these things, Llama, OCR, ChatGPT, AWS, Hugging Face, you start with that. And the last 5-10% is where you have to fine tune. For example, if you take a AWS model and start recognizing the goal post to make sure that the goal happened before you cut that clip, AWS is good to recognize, but if the background field is not that green, the feed is not that clear, then it will not be able to. So the last 5-7% you have to annotate and train. 95% work, mostly the big techs have done for you, you get it, or open source, you get it. In annotate and train, what happens is, for example, you will take 500,000 images of a goal post and you will send it to these data labeling companies. Scale.ai was a big one that Meta just acquired. So they're huge companies, from small pocket companies to all the way 50 billion scale acquisition. So you send it to data annotation company. You can do it in-house also. They will annotate, this is a goal, this is not a goal. And then you feed that in and do that last 5-7% of your training. But usually you never build anything from the base. Now, in this new world that exists for last 1.5 years, pre that you had.
So that brings me to another question. Like, actually, it's in two parts. One, see, AI is evolving so fast. Right? Whatever is an innovation today will be hygiene tomorrow. And secondly, you also mentioned that you do only 5% of the work. There are models available, there are data sets available. You can go to RoboFlow kind of places or Skill.ai where they can do the annotations as well, right? So, in such a scenario, what is your product moat and how do you continue to innovate to stay ahead in the competition?
See, this is a very, very difficult question because everything in AI looks like it'll get disrupted probably tonight or next year, one of the two. And especially with big tech making everything table stakes. For example, there was so much vision work we used to do. Now, Gemini latest models are so good. If you put in this podcast, it will label out everything and you can just semantic search where Radhika is asking about more. That 7 seconds will throw out. So things are becoming very, very good. I think where the mode would be, one would be a couple of things. One is the wrapper around a lot of all this. That last 5-7% that you are doing, do it very, very well. That will differentiate. Then the wrapper, the workflow wrapper. Like, why would somebody take out this where Radhika is asking about mode? Because somebody needs it. Understanding that user and feeding into the next piece of workflow and solving for the workflow for the user. That is also to do with understanding user very well and the UX. So where it feeds in, where it comes from, and that whole workflow, doing it very, very well and piecing together this AI is, I think, where the differentiation will come from. A lot of mode will also come from, because as much as big tech can solve a lot of models, etc., I do not think they are going to go into pockets of business and understanding the...
They're too niche for them.
Yeah, it's too small for them also and too niche for them. So whoever you're solving for, I think understanding that very well and working with them, people will always be important in this world of AI. I think that marrying that with AI is where you can produce some more. You understand your people very well. You solve their lives very well.
So there are two parts to technology. One, which we talked about, like how do you maintain a product. Next big thing is the infra, right? A huge amount of GPU goes in processing. In a simple question we ask to these models, right? How do you manage your infrastructure? Because at times you will have to scale the requirement when there's a live event, high volume live event going on, and sometimes there's no requirement. So how do you manage this infrastructure? And
see, a lot of it is managed by Mr. Vsauce very well. So a lot of these big techs, most of the big techs have these. That's where all of our clouds and servers are. It could be AWS, it could be Azure, etc., etc. So talking about, for example, AWS, that's where we host. A lot of things is in scale and auto rescale also. You don't really have to scale that. If basis the GPU utilization, basis the throughput required, they automatically kick in. Of course, if you've turned it on, they're not going to do it otherwise. They'll automatically scale it up to the next GPU, and then you don't want to be surprised that I have a $1 million bill, which happened to us because we didn't put a cutoff somewhere. But so you don't want that, so you will put in, okay, auto scale to this point, don't auto scale. So a lot of these things, the server systems are smart enough to handle. Now, one thing I figured from your question, in sports, it sounds like when there's a India-Pakistan match or something like that, there's a EPL match, the scale will be really big. That is from the consumer aspect because 100 million people watch it. From a content product, yeah, if there's one video, it's like any other video.
It doesn't matter to you, right? It must be mandatory to where the broadcast is happening. For you, it's the same thing.
For us, it is the same thing. At worst, I think there'll be 100 important matches tonight in the world. So it'll be the 100 times. It'll never be 1 to the power of 9. Like 100 million people are watching 1 to the power of 9. I do not think it is. Yeah, 100 sports matches, fine.
So tell me something. You mentioned about there as a lot of business. So who are your clients? And what is your business model? And do you customize your product for their requirements, or it is one size fits all?
I'll take the last one. You have to customize because sports, we're saying sports, but it is actually football, golf, netball, and this list goes on and on because with geography, we have clients from US to Australia. Everyone plays different things. Somebody gets on a back of a horse and starts throwing a ball on somebody. That's also sports, and everything happens on the name of sports these days. So we have to customize the models because sports are different. Who are our clients? Our clients are people who own leagues of these sports or who broadcast these sports. Mostly them, or or who produce these sports. But whoever has right to that video, we cannot work with any non-right holder. I cannot process if a YouTuber has posted our interview and then says process it. I cannot do it. If ET is the owner, I'll have to get it from ET. So mostly it'll be league. For example, we in US we have Northern Super League, which is a women football league. Then in Australia we have Hockey One, which is a hockey league, etc., etc. So mostly leagues or broadcasters have right. Depends on which geography. Different geographies have different metrics of sports rights. So rights holder mostly leagues and broadcasters.
And how do you price this?
Pricing, I'm using legacy pricing. It was always priced like before computers did it, like people did it, content editing teams did it, and they were priced by the hour of ingestion. If there's one match of football, it's a 2-hour match. So a human content team probably priced it on, we process 2 hours of your video and this will be the price. So hour of ingestion. So computer also, we are sticking to that whole model of hours of ingestion. Per hour of, say, IPL match I processed to create endless reels and hashtags, etc., I'll charge by per hour. Mostly it's like that. Yeah.
So if it's a 3-hour match, you charge into 3 hours, and it does not matter how many clips are created. No. So for example, the feeds are ingested, they are created and posted to social media, and then the editor or whoever is managing the dashboard or the content creates more and more content out of it. That does not matter.
No, because you have to think about where your cost sits, because ultimately business is about margin. You want margin to pay your expenses and then take back the money. So your cost sits, most of our cost sits in the AI models, AI training. That is the 80% of the chunk. That last piece where a person is creating Kareem Benzema's best goals or Virat Kohli's runs, etc. That part is a very small processing and part on me for a cost. It's automated. Their content manager is doing it. Nobody from us is required. So our human cost is not there. There's hardly anything we are doing new there. It's like less than 10%. So we really don't care about the output. This first part where we trained for you, where we maintain the human SLAs of excellencies, we computer vision, we heard everything, that's where the cost sits. So it's by per hour, it's not by the output.
Okay, you mentioned about SLAs. So what are your SLAs in such cases?
SLAs usually are 99% plus, unless there are technologies like 916. 916 is verticalizing a horizontal feed, which could be very easy in a media thing, like you and I are very static. But something where a ball is moving, if somebody is running, somebody is flying high, it's very difficult to track. So their computer has to do the 916. If 916 or the verticalization of this frame has to be done, we can just put a vertical frame and it's done. In sports, it gets very challenging. So challenging that in the world, it is not solved well. So there, the tolerance level of the clients, the leagues, etc., is also high. Even if you do 90% right, it is
99% of what?
of accuracy. Like if you say that I am going to hear the commentary and I'm going to figure out where all sixes happen, you will not deploy this model unless you have checked on 300 games that every time it said there was a six, there is a six or not. And this 300 may, in this set of 300, if there are, say, I don't know, 500 sixes, it should necessarily catch 490 sixes correctly and not catch 510 sixes. Not create sixes, not leave out sixes. Yeah, false positive. Yeah. So that error of margin on both sides have to be not more than 1%. So that kind of thing. If you're going to listen and say it's goal, then you be within 1% of error. If you're going to see it, be within 1% of error.
Do you define, like, for example, you mentioned goals, wickets? These are predefined things that you've given in the system.
Yeah.
But what if the content manager wants to have some different kind of clips from it? That is possible from your dashboard by giving a prompt, or how?
You can give a prompt. That is possible. Mostly human will be involved in this one. Computers will not be trained for it. One of interesting examples of this is the Her Highness showing up on Wimbledon and Anushka Sharma showing up when Virat Kohli is retiring. That clip becomes more important and internet worthy than anything. That will have to be done manually. It will recognize Her Highness Kate and it will recognize Anushka Sharma because the AWS recognizes both of them. So we had not specifically trained for these ladies, but generally when big stars and these NFL players and their wives and girlfriends and they show up, Taylor Swift shows up for NFL, that becomes very important IP, billions of dollar IP. And there you can semantic search where is Taylor Swift in this video, it will take you there. But then you'll have to cut it manually. Yeah, that ability we get.
I mean, I'm sure you would have done your study. What is the business potential or market potential for something for a very particular use case of AI in sports that you're solving? I'm sure there are many more.
Yeah.
And do you see any competition from the UGC content? Like I was also present during a match and I captured it and put it on YouTube. And these days YouTubers are also big, right? Like Instagrammers. So both the questions, how big is the market potential and do you see competition from UGC?
See, the market for sports is $1 trillion industry. It is
AI in sports for the use case that you were solving.
It would be much smaller, say 5% of that. Not AI in sports. What I'm solving, because most of it would be human yet, would be 5% or 10%. A lot of that 90% would be what is the fees of the people and whatever. So it would be way smaller. I don't know, maybe a few $billion, say $20 billion. That's like 2% of it. Fair. So that is a few $billion, 10 billion or 15 billion is good enough market to serve. Like for example, food delivery would be a $2-3 billion market. So it's a big enough. And within that, you can make Zomato, you can make Swiggy, etc. So sports is a $1 trillion industry. A small portion of it would be content processing. That itself should be like, I think, 10, 20, $30 billion. But the bigger question always is, what is the growth rate of this industry? Food industry, food delivery was way smaller, but still you'll make a Zomato because all of us women who were cooking, we stopped cooking and started working. Now who's getting the food? It's Zomato is getting the food and that theory. So the growth rate of the industry is what is more stunning or important. And as you said, they're YouTubers, they're content creator. Why are all these people there? Because entertainment on your phone is becoming so important. And with AI, etc., people are having more leisure time. So sports overall is growing a lot. So sports is growing, it means its content is growing, means your opportunity to process that content is also growing. So it's a huge industry growing very fast. Every day we see new sports come up. Somebody wants to take a yacht and run in the middle with crocodile and people are doing all kind of things. So sports getting very, very big. In general, also we saw even within India, what happened with IPL in last 10 years or 15 years, I think from 2008, it's stunning. Like wherever I go in the world, in any sports conferences, people talk about IPL. Like they talk about NBA, NFL, within the top 3-4 people. And IPL, what a story. So you saw that growth because the consumption of sports is going up. So that is a very, very big, important thing. You're building for the future. If the growth rate is high, then you grow with it. It's like a wave that pulls all up.
That's very interesting and a very positive news that the sports industry is growing, content consumption is growing, mobile devices are growing. So this is all being positive. But what is the biggest challenge you see and you in the use case that you were solving? What's the biggest challenge that you're seeing? And how do you see the space evolving in next 2 to 3 years?
The particular AI content processing, it is just beginning. We are just beginning to be able to hear and see. We are not able to do what we actually have to do. We actually have to story tell. You know what happens with Drive to Survive and those kind of things? They took up a whole tournament or a season of F1 and created a story out of it. Now that is what people go mad about, and so much so that F1 now has become so popular post that, and same with Full Swing, etc. Those are storytelling. Every match is a story, everything is a story. Even right now, we're just cutting, chopping, clipping, rule making. That's not the end game. Story tell Radhika something else, to me something else. I care about golf, you care about other sports, right? So we are way far from that, and so there's so much to do with AI and even with human capabilities to reach there.
So my next question was, what is the biggest technical problem, technical challenge that you're seeing here and you want to solve? But I think you already mentioned storytelling. So you have to take a stab at it and crack it. How do you want to solve if you had to solve it?
We are trying to solve it. For example, we are trying to extract the story a lot from the commentary part. So we listening to the commentary to figure out the events, but now we are forcing the commentary to tell us the story, because when Sidhu sits there as a commentator, for example, he tells a lot of story that, oh, six like this was never been hitting. Yes.
In the past, this have
Yeah.
very historical area
Yeah.
gathering nuggets that are coming
Yeah.
that your platform.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you hear the comment, somebody's telling this story, start capitalizing on it rather than trying to figure out the story yourself. So that is a step one that we are trying to solve for one of the biggest leagues in the world, because they're like storytell. That Drive to Survive, I want it on every match of mine. So that is where we began. That commentators tell so much story, pick it up, go back to the DB of the league. Say we are doing this for NBA. Go back to the DB of NBA, pick out those clips and stitch it together. When he says, no, that a thing like this has never happened, or a thing like this happened when ABD did this. NBA is your client. You also have access to all the player data, etc. So we are trying to pick it up and stitch it together. So we are trying. We went commentary first, and then going back to DB, and then meta tagging the whole archive is very important for that if you're going to storytell. So that is how we are approaching it now. This is the first year we're trying to replace highlights with story first highlights.
So, Richa, you're doing some very interesting and involved work, and I think it has applications not just in sports industry, but entire content industry, entire media industry. Any show, any TV show can use these models that you're building and build on top of it, right? So, and with this, we wrap our conversation. Thank you, Richa, so much for joining us today. Stay tuned with us to know more conversations about the business of AI and how AI is reshaping business and work. Until then, bye bye. Have a nice day.